Om Ajnanathimiranthasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitham Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Ananda Leelamaya Vigrahaya Hemavadivya Chavi Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So it is my supreme honor and good fortune to be amongst all the devotees here in this holy month of Purushottam. Today happens to be the auspicious occasion of Padmini Ekadashi. So of all the months, Purushottam is considered the most auspicious. This month is so auspicious that it is even above the month of Kartik as far as the mercy aspect is concerned. And amongst the 12 months, as Purushottam is the most auspicious, but in this 30 days of Purushottam Mass, if there is one day that is the most auspicious, of the most auspicious, then it is the day of Ekadashi. It is called as Hari Vasara, or Ekadashi is also called as Upavas. Many places we see it's called as Upavas. Well, why is it called as Upavas? Because Upa in Sanskrit means near, and Vasa means to reside. We call as Brajavasis or Navadvip Vasis. So Brajavasis are those who reside in Vrindavan, or Navadvip Vasis are those who reside in Navadvip. So similarly, this is called as Upavas because Upa means near and Vasa means to reside. So traditionally, Ekadashi is that day when the practitioner leaves everything to the side, all of his material responsibilities, he leaves everything to the side, and he sits near to whom? Well, he sits near to his Guru, or he sits near to his Sri Guru, or his Siksha Guru, or anyone from whom he is learning. And from him, very submissively, he hears about the glories of Sri Krishna. He hears about the glories of Hari or Gaur Hari, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is the perfect month, this is the perfect day, and this is the perfect occasion for all of us to come together on this day of Padmini Ekadashi to hear and chant about the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As we all have heard of the place of Navadvip, this place is auspicious and glorious because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chose to appear in Navadvip, in the place called as Yogapith. It's been, personally speaking, it's been many years, it's been almost 10 years that I have not been to Navadvip. So personally, to whet my appetite and to also whet the appetite of all the listeners here, I would be speaking on this most auspicious and glorious place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Navadvip, and a few places in and around Navadvip. So as we know, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the fountainhead of all the incarnations. And naturally, as he is the fountainhead of all the incarnations, as he is the crest jewel of all incarnations, this pastime place of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also the most glorious. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written a whole book called as the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. He basically writes 3 books. The first is Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Second is called as Navadvip Mandal Parikrama. And the third is called as Navadvip Bhava Taranga. So today, at least for the first 15-20 minutes or so, our discussion would be based on Navadvip Dham Mahatmya as told by Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So in this book, Bhaktivinoda Thakur extols the glories of this place. And he says that in Kali, as Kali progresses, the power of Kali will be so much that all the pastime places around the world will begin to contract. All the pastime places will begin to reduce its importance, will come down as far as importance is concerned. Why? Because people living in that place will consider that place as a normal tract of land. Because you see, even in English, it says familiarity breeds contempt. So the more you stay at one place or the more you associate with one person, too much familiarity can cause lack of respect. So Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that as Kali progresses, all the pastime places will be considered just like a normal tract of land, and they will come down as far as importance is concerned. But he says there is only one tract of land. There is only one piece of land that will increase as far as the glories are concerned as Kali progresses. As the days pass by, as the years pass by, as the decades pass by, there is only one place that will increase its importance and increase its glory. And Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur very emphatically says that is the place of Navadvip. Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. He says that is the place of Navadvip Dham. And this place, it works a little different from other pastime places. How? Well, all the other pastime places that are there, like for example, Braj, Vrindavan, or Jagannath Puri, or Ayodhya, or Dwaraka, they all follow the rule of Ye Yatha Mam Prapadyante Tam Stataiva Bhajamyaham. They all follow the rule of the way we approach the Dham, that is the way the Dham reciprocates. For example, if someone visiting the Dham is 50% glorious, the Dham opens up 50%. If the person visiting the Dham is 75% glorious, the Dham opens up 75%. If the person visiting is 90% glorious, the Dham opens up 90%. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Navadvip Dham doesn't work this way. It works completely opposite. To the extent the person visiting is sinful, to that extent the Dham opens up. He says this is the glory of Navadvip Dham, and the best examples are Jagai and Madhai. They were the most fallen, very abominable, but the Dham of Navadvip completely opened up to them. So this is the only place where Uttama, Adhama, high class or low class, it doesn't consider any of these things. It doesn't consider any aparad, no offenses. So the sun of Navadvip showers its sun rays to everyone, not just those who are residing in that place, but also to those who are visiting this place of Navadvip Dham. And dear devotees, this place is so glorious that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, just when a person desires to go to Navadvip Dham, for example, if at this moment at 11:17 a.m., we make this decision that I'm going to leave everything and go to Navadvip Dham, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, even if this thought comes to the mind, then all the sins that the jiva has committed, everything is burnt into ashes just by the thought of Navadvip. This place is so glorious. Brahmaji, who is the creator, who is the Vidhata, he is begging Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that, my dear Mahaprabhu, let me become one blade of grass in Navadvip Dham. We see in Vrindavan, Uddhav is praying the same thing. He says, Vrindavane kimapi gulmalat aushadina, my dear Krishna, please give me this benediction to become a blade of grass in Braj, so that the gopis of Vrindavan and the Brajavasis can place their lotus feet upon my head, so that I may become purified. And seeing Uddhav, Brahmaji is also having the same desire. He's telling Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when will that day come in my life, when I will forget that I am the creator, when I will lose this tag of being the Vidata, and I can become one blade of grass in Navadvip Dham. This is the glory, dear devotees of Navadvip. Brahmaji, who is the creator, wants to become one blade of grass. And the glory doesn't end here. The same is desired and requested by Indra, Chandra, Agni, Vayu, Varuna. Even Mahadev, even Lord Shiva is desiring to be in Navadvip Dham. So this place is not different from Vrindavan Dham. It is said anyone who thinks that, oh, Vrindavan is a little greater than Navadvip, oh, that person will be doomed. Because Navadvip and Vrindavan are one and the same. They're exactly the same place. To such an extent, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if someone desires to go to Navadvip Dham, just when he makes the resolution that, oh, now I want to go to Navadvip Dham, at that point, all the pastime places that are there around the world, they all come and reside in the heart of the person who is desiring. Why? Because all the pastime places, along with the person who is desiring, they all want to go and see Navadvip Dham. The pastime places on their own accord cannot go to Navadvip, but they want to sit in the heart of this person who is desiring, and along with him, they want to go to Navadvip. All the pastime places, not just in this world, but in all the 14 planetary systems, 7 above and 7 below, if there are any pastime places below. But all of them, they reside in the heart of someone who just desires to go to Navadvip once. This is the glory, dear devotees, of this land of Navadvip. And why is it called as Navadvip? Because Nava means 9 and Dvipa means an island. So there are 9 islands in this place. These 9 islands come together to form Navadvip. And it's very interesting that the 8 islands are considered to be the 8 petals. The first 8 islands are considered to be the 8 petals of a lotus. We all have seen a lotus, especially when it's offered to Radha Neelamadhav. We all see a lotus, and the lotus has many petals. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving this example that all the 8 islands that are there, that are like the 8 petals. We have Godruma Dweep, Simanta Dweep, Ritu Dweep, Modadruma Dweep, and so many other places like this. So they are like the 8 petals, but inside the lotus, we have the whole, the center of the lotus. And the center of the lotus is called as Antardweep. It's called as Antardweep. And now, dear devotees, it is so interesting. These 9 islands denote the 9 stages of bhakti. We have Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, and Atma Nivedanam. The 9 stages of bhakti. And these 9 islands denote the 9 stages. For example, Shravanam. Shravanam is denoted by Simanta Dweep. Then second, we have Shravanam, that is Kirtanam. Second, Kirtanam is denoted by Godruma Dweep. So in this way, every island is mapped to one stage of bhakti. But finally, it is so interesting to note that the last stage is called as Atma Nivedanam, which means complete surrender. Atma Nivedanam. And Atma Nivedanam is denoted by Antardweep. Antardweep maps to Atma Nivedanam, that is complete surrender. And dear devotees, the most fascinating point is Srila Prabhupada built the Chandrodaya ISKCON Mayapur temple in Antardweep. It is the center. So Navadweep is the center of the whole universe, and the center of Navadvip is Antardvip. So Prabhupada built the ISKCON temple in the center of the whole world. Why? Because Antardvip denotes Atma Nivedanam, complete surrender. So showing to the world that anyone who comes to Chandrodaya Mandir should exemplify this point of complete surrender to Shri Radha Madhav. So that is why in the beginning, when we were doing Kirtan, I was chanting the name of Radha Madhav and beseeching Radha Madhav that when will that day be ours, when we all as a group can go to Radha Madhav, can go to Mayapur in Antardvip and completely surrender our life and soul at the feet of Radha Madhav and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But close to Navadvip Dham, about 30 or 40 kilometers by car, is a very famous place called as Sri Khanda. This is not the Srikhand that we eat. It's not the Srikhand and Puri, but this place is called as Sri Khanda. And this place, dear devotees, is very fascinating and very interesting. The Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the Chaitanya Bhagavat of Vrindavan Das Thakur, the Chaitanya Mangal of Lochan Das Thakur, and the Bhakti Ratnakar of Narahari Chakravarti. All these four books profusely describe this place of Sri Khanda. This is such a glorious place that all the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they had the choice of appearing anywhere in the world, but they all chose to appear in this place of Sri Khanda. Even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami, he initially is describing in the Adi Leela, he is describing the whole of Gaur Leela and the pastimes of Gaur Leela as the tree trunk, as the tree. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the tree trunk. So, Hare Krishna. Am I frozen?
No, Prabhuji, it's good now.
It's good. Okay. So, Kaviraj Goswami, he gives this analogy. He says, Gaur Leela and the pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu is like that of a tree. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the central trunk. And all the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are the various branches and the sub-branches and the twigs and the sub-twigs and the flowers and the leaves and the petals. But this place of Sri Khanda, even at that time when Kaviraj Goswami is describing the whole tree of Gaur Leela, even at that point, Kaviraj Goswami makes the description of Sri Khanda. So it's a very power-packed and a very important place. And in about 45 minutes from now, we will know why this place is so important and why is Kaviraj Goswami and all our predecessor acharyas emphasizing on the glories and the greatness of this place called as Sri Khanda. So this place of Sri Khanda has had a very few prominent associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And up on the list, the first name on that list is Sri Mukunda Das. Now this Mukunda Das is different from the Mukunda Dutt that we have heard. Mukunda Dutt in Gaur Leela is the singer, while the Mukunda Das that we are going to describe now, he is a physician. So Mukunda Das was a royal physician in Bengal. He was working for a Muslim king there, and he was a very royal physician. So once it so happened that the king who was there, he called Mukunda Das, he invited him. And Mukunda Das, he went to the king, and it was a summer afternoon, scorching summer afternoon. So he had to climb all his way up to the courtroom where the king and many ministers were sitting. So Mukunda Das climbed all his way. And because it was a hot, scorching summer afternoon, this king was fanned by his ministers. But the fan they were using was a peacock feather. It was not a Japanese fan that we find, but it was a peacock feather that they were using. So with the peacock feather, they were fanning the king because it was a hot summer afternoon. And Mukunda, when he came, he saw this whole sight. And when he saw this whole sight, there was a transformation that took place in his heart. Just when he saw the peacock feather. Barha pidam natavara vapu karnayo karnikaram vibradvasana kanaka kapisham vaijayantim chamalam randhran venuradara sudayan napurayan gopa brindai vrindaranyam swapada ramanam pravishad gita kirtihi. 10:21:5 Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 21, Text 5. Shukadev Goswami in this verse is describing the beautiful form of Sri Krishna. Very beautiful form. He says, oh, what is Krishna wearing? Krishna has a Vaijayanti garland, Vaijayanti mala. Now, many times we have heard this name, Vaijayanti mala. This Vaijayanti mala is comprised of 5 flowers. 5 forest flowers come together and they form this garland. So why is it called as Vaijayanti? Vai means Vishesha Rupena. Vishesha Rupena Jayati, which means Krishna is victorious over the hearts of the Brajavasis. This is a sign of Krishna's victory over the Brajavasis, because in the heart of every Brajavasi is Krishna. Whether it is in Sakhya Ras, whether it is in Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya or Madhurya, all of them unanimously have Krishna in their heart. So Krishna is victorious over all the Brajavasis. So this garland symbolizes his victory over the Brajavasis, the love of the Brajavasis. So Vaijayanti mala. So Krishna is wearing a Vaijayanti mala. And what next? Oh, well, Shukadev Goswami says Krishna has a nice golden waistcloth. Then he says Krishna has a nice yellow garment, a yellow dhoti. And then there are the beautiful, wonderful, glorious friends of Krishna who are singing and chanting his glories. And then Krishna has a bamboo flute, the holes of which are completely filled by the nectar that is emanating from Krishna's lips. Krishna pours his nectar, the nectar that is emanating from his lips, into the holes of the flute. So he's describing the bamboo flute. But how does he start the verse? Shukadev Goswami starts off the verse by saying Barha Pidam. He starts off by saying Krishna has a crown of peacock feathers. Remaining everything is described later, whether it is the Vaijayanti garland or the yellow cloth or the golden waistcloth or the flute or the friends. They are all described later. But Shukadev Goswami starts off the verse by saying Krishna has a crown of peacock feathers. Now, many times we see, even in our temples, we see Krishna always has a peacock feather. Why? It's a very interesting question. Why does Krishna wear peacock feathers? Because the peacocks, they had always heard that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati Tadam Bhakti Uparitam Asnami Prayatatmanaha. Chapter 9, text 26, Bhagavad Gita. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, oh, worshipping me is very simple. Bhakti unto me is very easy. Why? Because Krishna says, to worship me, you don't require big fancy objects. You don't require big paraphernalias. But whatever the nature offers, you can offer it to me in the form of patram, that is leaf, pushpam, flowers, patram, pushpam, phalam, that is fruits, and toyam, water. Now, all these 4 things are available in the nature. We don't have to manufacture anything. And irrespective of whether someone is rich or poor, they can avail what the nature is ready to offer. So Krishna says, worship, bhakti unto me is so easy that you can just give any one of these things. You give me one leaf and that is bhakti. You give me little water, that is bhakti. You give me one fruit, that is bhakti. And you give me one flower, that is bhakti. Krishna says, bhakti is very easy unto me. But now the peacock feathers were scratching their head. They were thinking to themselves, Krishna, In Bhagavad Gita, you said Patram, Pushpam, Phalam, Toyam. But we don't have Patram, we don't have Pushpam, we don't have Phalam, and we don't have Toyam. We don't have anything to give you, Krishna. What can we give you? And as we all know, the peacocks, they are known for their dance, especially when it rains. If you have seen in Vrindavan, especially near Giriraj, when we are doing the Giriraj Parikrama, we find if it's the monsoon time and if it's drizzling or if it's raining heavily, we find the peacocks at that time, they come out and they spread all their peacock feathers, and very nicely, in a very sweet, graceful manner, the peacocks dance. So the peacock is known for its dancing, and practically there is no other creature, there is no other bird that can compete with the peacock as far as a dance is concerned. But now, when Krishna is in Vrindavan, he sees the peacock dance. And when Krishna sees the peacocks dance, Krishna starts dancing. And when Krishna starts dancing, the peacocks start to dance again. And when peacocks are dancing, Krishna is dancing. And this competition goes on and on between peacocks and Krishna. And finally, the peacocks, they surrender to Krishna. And they say, oh Krishna, you are better than us even in dancing. You are better than everybody in all the fields, whether it is the singing, whether it is dancing, whether it is flute playing. You are better than everyone, Krishna, including dancing. So what can we give you? What is the ticket? What is the price that we can pay to see you dance? And at that time, the peacocks think to themselves, we don't have any of these four things of Patram, Pushpam and Phalam, Toyam, but Krishna, all that we have is our peacock feathers. Let us unanimously pluck the peacock feathers that you have given us and offer it to you. May this be the ticket. May this be the price to see your beautiful dance, O Krishna. Now, just like we go to Vrindavan or Mayapur, Ganga or Yamuna, we take the waters of Ganga, we dip our emotional sentiments and our love in it, and we offer it back to the Ganga, or we offer that water again back to the Yamuna. So the peacocks are telling Krishna that, Krishna, you have given us the peacock feathers, and that is the reason we are again giving it back to you. So, that is the reason I'm wearing a bagalbandi that has a lot of peacock feathers today. I'm on the side of the peacock feathers today. So when Krishna sees this, Krishna becomes very emotional. He has tears in his eyes, and Krishna takes all the peacock feathers and he puts it upon his head. And there are so many peacock feathers that Shukadeva Goswami says, Barha Pidam, it's a crown of peacock feathers, to show to the world that this is the love that even the animals have in Vrindavan. So then what to speak of the human beings? So Krishna has a peacock feather. So now coming back to our discussion, Mukunda Das, when he saw this scene where the king was fanned by peacock feathers, he remembered Krishna and Vrindavan, and from the high pedestal, he fell all the way, he rolled in all the steps, and he fell to the ground and he was unconscious. So when the king saw this, he was perplexed. He was thinking to himself, what is this? I called him because he's a physician, but seems like the doctor himself has become the patient. What has happened? So the king went down to see Mukunda Das. And after sprinkling little water, Mukunda Das got up. And the king asked him, oh Mukunda, what happened? What did you see that caused this transformation in your heart? Why did you fall to the ground? At that time, Mukunda Das did not say, oh, I'm very advanced devotee. Actually, I saw your peacock feather, so I remembered Krishna and Vrindavan. You see how great I am. Mukunda Das did not say any of these things. The pure devotees, the advanced devotees, they do not make a show of their realization. You don't walk around giving a pearl necklace in the hands of a monkey. When we see a monkey, intelligence is to hide the pearl necklace. Similarly, the pure Vaishnavas, they don't give out their pure realizations. They don't give out their experience of divinity out in the public, because it is personal. It's a one-on-one affair with Sri Krishna. So the realizations are never shared outside. Now it's like camphor. You see, when a camphor is kept in a closet, there is nice fragrance. But the moment the camphor is brought out in public, there is sublimation, which means realizations are like that camphor. It is very sacred and it has to be kept in the closet of our heart. The moment it is brought outside, then there is sublimation. So Mukunda Das did not tell the king, oh, I am very advanced devotee, I am very great devotee. Actually, you should pay me respects. He did not say any of these things. But when the king asked him, he said, actually, I am a patient of epilepsy. Actually, I have fits. And this is just an expression of that epilepsy. It happens to me multiple times in a day. Please don't mind. It is just an expression of my disease. But the king, he clearly understood that this is not epilepsy. This is not fits. The reason was Mukunda Das, all his hair was standing in end. There were tears that were flowing from the eyes. His throat was parched. His skin became pale. He was horripilating. And he had fallen to the ground. So the king, who was a Muslim king, even he understood that these are not the symptoms of epilepsy, but these are the symptoms of someone who was absorbed in God. These are the symptoms of God realization. So he told Mukunda, oh, Mukunda, I think it's time for you to go home. We can again meet tomorrow. And Mukunda left for his home. So this is a clear instance of someone who has so much bhakti, so much God realization in his heart that, dear devotees, just by looking at the peacock feather, Mukunda fell to the ground. It is something for us to meditate on, because every time we come to the temple, we see Radha Nila Madhav, we see his peacock feather, or at least we should be seeing his peacock feather. But seldom do we fall to the ground unconscious. So from the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we see that there is a lot of work that we need to do. There is a lot of anarthas that need to be cleared from our heart. And when will that day come in our lives? When just by looking at the peacock feather, we will fall to the ground flat. So this whole pastime is given by Srila Prabhupada in his Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the first takeaway, the first lesson from this discussion is there is so much nectar in Srila Prabhupada's books that when, how to unearth is up to us. The nectar is there, but when and how and when to do it, that is completely upon us. Like we find in the pastime of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he appeared just 5 or 10 years after the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was burning in separation. Why? Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was an incarnation of Radha and Krishna. And all the associates of Gauranga Mahaprabhu were there with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his pastimes. And here was Narottam Das Thakur, who appeared 5 or 10 years after the disappearance of Gauranga. So his heart was bleeding. He was burning in separation. And that is why we've seen in the song of Jai Anilo Premadhana, which is written by Narottam Das Thakur, every line is practically in the mood of separation. Where is Rupa? Where is Sanatan? Where is Kaviraj? Where is Gopal Bhatta? Where is Jiva? Where is Gauranga? Where is Nityananda? Where did all of these associates go, leaving me behind? What wrong did I do that I did not get your association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So Narottam Das Thakur like this weeps. And in the fourth verse of that song of Jai Anilo Premadhana, Narottam Das Thakur, he says, Pashane ku dibo matha anale pashibo Gauranga Gudera Nidhi Kothai Gele Pavo. He says, Pashane Kutibo Matha. Pashana means stone. He says, Pashane Kutibo Matha. I will smash my head against the stone. Or Anale Pashibo. Anala means fire. I will enter fire. I will smash my head against a rock, or I will enter fire. Anala. we see this word Anala is also used in the Guru Ashtakam prayers in the very first verse. In the first verse, when Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining, he says, Samsara dhava nalalidha loka, analalidha loka. Anala means fire. So he compares this world to be a blazing forest fire. And in many places, other places also, we see acharyas have used this word of anala, which means fire. So the next time we sing Guru Ashtakam prayers, we should remember this is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is referring to. This world is like a blazing fire bereft of Krishna. So Narottam Das Thakur, who is burning in the separation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's saying, I will smash my head against a rock or I will enter fire. Why is he saying this? Well, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears once in a day of Brahma, which means he appears once in 8.64 billion years, dear devotees. And now naturally we can understand when Krishna is coming in the mood of Radharani once in 8.6 billion years and you have missed him by just 5 or 10 years, your heart will be bleeding in separation. Just imagine if in 1965 there was someone in New York City and he did not meet Prabhupada, and later he has joined the Krishna consciousness movement, and he from the Leelamrit, he comes to know that Prabhupada was in New York City and he missed Prabhupada. Oh, he will burn in separation. Now that is as far as an eternal associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is concerned, that is Prabhupada. What to speak of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, who is Radha and Krishna in one form. So Narottam Das Thakur would weep like this. So in his pastime we see, because he did not have association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did is, before he departed from this world, he kept a portion of his love, a portion of his prema in the Padma river. There was a river by the name Padma, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept a portion of his love in the waves of the Padma river and told the Padma river that in the future, a sadhu by the name Narotham will come. When he comes, please embrace him by your waves and give him this love that I have given it to you. And likewise, when Narottam Das Thakur, he went to the Padma river. Narottam Das Thakur, when he appeared in this world, was very dark in his color. He was very dark complexioned. But the moment when he went inside the Padma river and the love of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu touched his body, immediately his color transformed. And when he came outside, he was no longer dark complexioned, but he was golden in color. Why? Because the love of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had touched and embraced him. Likewise, dear devotees, we have not met Prabhupada. Just like Narottam Das Thakur has not met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have not met Prabhupada. But Prabhupada has kept his love for us in his purports, in his Bhaktivedanta purports. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept his love for Narottam Das Thakur in the Padma river. So for those who enter the Padma river of the Bhaktivedanta purports will be embraced by the waves of love that Srila Prabhupada has kept for us. So the onus is up to us, whether we want to get embraced by the waves of Gaur Prem and Krishna Prem, or whether we want to get embraced by material lust and material desires in the heart. So Narottam Das Thakur made the endeavor of going to Padma river and getting embraced by the waves of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Likewise, if we make an endeavor to read the books of Srila Prabhupada, then it is only a matter of time that we also will be embraced by the love, by the waves of Krishna Prem that Prabhupada has left for us. So this is a very important take home that Prabhupada teaches, and this whole pastime of Mukunda is described in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita given by Srila Prabhupada. Now, it's very interesting to know who is Mukunda in Krishna Leela. We see in Gaur Leela, Mukunda is a physician, he's a royal physician. But who is Mukunda in Krishna Leela? The Gaur Ganadesha Deepika describes the book that maps the personalities of Gaur Leela to Krishna Leela. or the book that maps the personalities of Krishna Leela to Gaur Leela. Very emphatically, Gaur Ganadesha Deepika describes Mukunda is none other than Vrinda Devi of Vrindavan. Shri Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Vrinda Devi Tulsi Maharani, who is the director of the Braj Leela. The Braj Planning Commission is head by Tulsi Maharani. She is the CEO for all the Braj Planning Commission. All the pastimes of Radha and Krishna that take place in Vrindavan is carried out. The planning is done by Vrinda Devi. And that same Vrinda Devi appeared in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya as Mukunda Das, as a royal physician. So the next time we see Tulsi Maharani, tomorrow morning for Mangalarti, when we see Tulsi Maharani, we should remind ourselves that Tulsi Maharani, who is the director of the Braj Planning Commission, who chucks out all the Vrindavan Leelas of Radha and Krishna, she came down in Gaur Leela as Mukunda Das, the dear associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So now, Mukunda Das had a very noteworthy, very humble, very compassionate, very gentle, very sober, and on top of it, a very devotional son by the name Raghunandan. Raghunandan was very small, but very advanced, very devotional in his principles. Just like we have the examples of Prahlad, who was just 5, and Dhruva, who was again just 5. Similarly, Raghunandan was very small when a very fascinating episode took place that I'm going to narrate. Raghunandan was only 5 years old, and Mukunda, who's the father, every day would offer food to the Supreme Lord. They had the deity of Gopinath in their house, and every day they would offer bhoga. Their wife would cook, and Mukunda would offer it to Gopinath. But one day it so happened that the king, he called Mukunda. So the king left his house, but when he left the house, he told Raghunandan that, my dear son, every day I offer the bhoga, but today the king is calling me. So I want you to offer this bhoga. And Raghunandan was only 5 years old. He told his father, but father, I do not know how to offer. I am so small, I don't know how to offer. So Mukunda, he said, oh Raghunandan, don't worry. It's very easy. Just take a bell and chant a few mantras. And when you chant a few mantras, Krishna will honor it. And when Krishna honors it, we will have it as prasad. So Raghunandan said, oh, this is very easy. I can do it. So when the wife, she cooked, the mother of Raghunandan, when she cooked the bhoga, she gave it to Raghunandan. And Raghunandan very sincerely, very innocently, he picked up the plate of bhoga and he went inside the temple room. And he kept it in front of Gopinath. And he started ringing his bell and started saying the prayers. He started saying prayers and he opened his eyes and the plate was full. So he again closed his eyes and again started ringing the bell. And he again opened his eyes. Again, the plate was full. So again, he closed his eyes and again started ringing the bell. And he opened his eyes. Again, the plate was full. So he looked at Gopinath and said, Gopinath, you got to eat. This bhoga is for you. If you don't eat, my father will chastise me. He will think I didn't offer it to you properly. So Gopinath, please eat. And the deity wouldn't say anything. The deity was quiet. And Raghunandan said, Gopinath, eat. Gopinath, eat. Gopinath, please eat. You have to eat. If you don't eat, my father will chastise me. Gopinath, eat. Please eat. And he had tears in his eyes and says, Gopinath, eat. Why are you not eating? Now, in our experience, we see that when we offer a plate of bhoga, the plate comes back as it is. So then how do we understand that whether Krishna is eaten or not? Well, Krishna doesn't have to eat like us. We use the tongue to eat, but for Krishna, all the senses can do the activities of all other senses. Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti. Brahma Samhita, Brahmaji says that, oh Krishna, all your limbs, all your organs can do the work of all the other organs. Krishna with his eyes can eat. Krishna with his tongue can see. Krishna with his nose can hear. Krishna with his ears can smell. Krishna with his hands can walk. Everything can do the work of every other limb. So when we offer, Krishna accepts it through his eyes. And actually, Krishna eats the whole plate of prasad. Even when we offer, Krishna eats the whole plate of prasad. So now, naturally, we will have the question, oh Prabhu, if Krishna is eating the whole plate of prasad, then why is it that we are seeing the whole plate as it is? Well, the reason for that is Krishna eats the whole plate of prasad. But then Krishna thinks to himself, if I eat the whole plate of prasad, then what will my devotee have? My devotee very sincerely has cooked for me, and if I eat the whole plate, then what will my devotee have? What prasad will he have? So Krishna eats the whole plate, and by his inconceivable potencies, by his inconceivable power, he recreates, he duplicates another plate. So every offering that we do, that plate Krishna has had, but through his power, Krishna has made a duplicate plate so that it comes out as remnants. So that is why we see the whole plate as full. But actually, Krishna has eaten the whole plate. But now Raghunandan was just 5 years old. He did not understand all this philosophy. So when he started shedding tears, he told Gopinath, eat, please eat. So Gopinath, he spoke to Raghunandan and said, Raghunandan, this is not how deity worship works. You ring the bell, you say some prayers, and I will have it through my eyes. I don't have to eat like you. Raghunandan says, my dear Lord, why are you saying all this philosophy? I don't understand all this philosophy. I know I eat with my tongue, and I expect you also to eat with my tongue. Why are you giving all these philosophies? I don't want to hear any of them. I eat with my tongue. You are also supposed to eat with your tongue. Gopinath, please eat. And Raghunandan was crying and crying and crying because he was afraid that if Gopinath doesn't eat, his father will chastise him. So when the Lord saw tears in the eyes of Raghunandan, he came down the altar and finished the whole plate of prasad. And now, the wife who was there outside, the mother of Raghunandan, she was thinking to herself that my son has been inside for almost 30 minutes and he has not come out. So the moment she was about to open the door and go inside, Raghunandan with a big smiling face, he came out. And lo and behold, the whole plate was completely empty. So the mother of Raghunandan and the wife of Mukunda, she saw the whole plate and she asked him, what happened to the plate? Did you eat the whole plate? And Raghunandan very innocently said, no, mother, my father told me to offer it to the Lord. So I offered it to the Lord, and Gopinath very mercifully, he came and ate the whole plate. So the mother, she said, Gopinath ate the whole plate? Raghunandan said, yes, Gopinath ate the whole plate. So she said, okay, when your father comes, you explain it to him. It is between you and him. Don't bring me in picture. When your father comes, go and explain it to him what happened. So Raghunandan said, okay. After some time, when Mukunda came home, he told his wife that if there is any prasad, and she said, Mukunda, there is no prasad in the house. And at that time, Mukunda said, there's no prasad in the house? What happened to the prasad? Where did it go? And she said, ask your son Raghunandan, what mischief he did when he went inside. So Mukunda came to Raghunandan and said, Raghunandan, what happened to the prasad? And Raghunandan very innocently said, my dear father, Gopinath ate the whole plate of prasad. So when Mukunda heard this, he took Raghunandan on his lap and nicely started massaging and patting his back. And Mukunda knew the greatness of his son. He knew the glories of Raghunandan. So he did not doubt when Raghunandan said this. So he asked Raghunandan that, Raghunandan, can you please explain what happened? When you went inside, what happened? Can you please explain it to me? Raghunandan very kindly said, yes, father. When I went inside, I rang the bell 3-4 times and Gopinath did not eat. Then I started crying and I told him, my dear Gopinath, please eat. And when I shed a lot of tears, Gopinath came down the altar and he ate the whole plate. So Mukunda, when he heard this, he had tears in his eyes. And he told Raghunandan, Raghunandan, can we do it? Can we do this one more time? Round 2. I trust whatever you said, but just for the satisfaction of my eyes, can we do it once again? I will give you a laddu. Can you go and offer this laddu to Gopinath and ask him to eat? Raghunandan said, yes, yes, father, I will do it. And the laddu was given to the hand of Raghunandan. Raghunandan very nicely, he was very small. He went inside and gave the laddu to Gopinath and said, Gopinath, eat. And Gopinath wouldn't respond. So he started crying again, Gopinath, eat. Why are you not eating, Gopinath? Please eat, eat, eat. And he was having tears in his eyes. So Gopinath, he looked at Raghunandan and said, Raghunandan, you can do this all the time. You know, I get sold out when someone cries. When you cry in front of me, I cannot do anything. When my devotee cries in front of me, I sell myself to that person. When Prahlad cried, Nrsimhadev appeared. When Dhruva cried, Vishnu appeared. When Bilva Mangala cried, the Lord appeared. When Draupadi cried, Krishna appeared. When the gopis cried, Krishna came from the Rasmandal. When the devotee cries, it's a known fact, Gaura Govinda Maharaj would say, when the devotee cries, Krishna has to appear. Whoever he is, whatever the age is, if we shed tears for Krishna, Krishna, you are appearing for everyone. Why are you not appearing for me? What wrong have I done? When will that day come when I can actually see your form? When we shed tears, Krishna appears. Tears purchase Krishna. There is no other price that we can pay to purchase Krishna. What can we pay Krishna? Our house and our Tesla cars and our few dollars, and these things don't buy the attention of Krishna, because Krishna has everything in better. He is Lakshmi Kant. Lakshmi, whose money personified, is serving the feet of the Supreme Lord. So what can we offer the Lord? But what Krishna is looking out for is bhakti. He's looking for tears in the eyes. So when Raghunandan cried, the Gopinath came. And he said, Raghunandan, you can't do this all the time. I can't eat. I just had a full plate of prasad. Raghunandan said, my dear Lord, don't tell me all these things. I know in Jagannath Puri you have Chappan Bhog. You have 56 items. And even before your hands get dried up, you have another plate of Chappan Bhog. So don't tell me that your stomach is full. That holds true for normal living entities, not for you, my dear Lord. I know you can still eat it. Please eat. When Raghunandan said this, Gopinath said, okay. And he again came down the altar and he had one piece of the laddu. And the moment Gopinath had one piece of the laddu, Mukunda opened the door. He was actually seeing it from outside. But when the Lord came down to eat one piece of laddu, Mukunda opened the door and fell down at the feet of Raghunandan and at the feet of Gopinath. The moment Gopinath saw this, he went back to his altar in the form of Tribhang Lalit Shyamasundar. He went back to the altar playing his flute. And Mukunda, he told Raghunandan, Raghunandan, I have been offering to Gopinath for such a long time, but never did Gopinath leave his altar to come down and have this plate of prasad. But your devotion is so high that for you, he left the altar to come down and eat from your hands. Raghunandan, you are not my son and I am not your father, because generally the son seeks inspiration from the father. So Mukunda says, I am actually seeking inspiration from you, Raghunandan. So you are not my son and I am not your father, but actually you are my father and I am your son. You are my father because I am seeking inspiration from you as to how to do bhakti. So this is a very fascinating pastime that took place of Raghunandan, the son of Mukunda, when he was only 5 years old, with the deity of Gopinath. And this deity of Gopinath is still present. For Gaudiya Vaishnavas, there are 3 deities that are very, very, very prominent, dear devotees. Shri Radha Saha Shri Madan Mohan, Shri Radha Saha Shri Govinda Charan, Shri Radha Saha Shri Gopinath, 18 Thakur Hoy Gaudiyara Nath. There are 3 Thakurs, 3 lords who are the masters of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. That is Radha Madan Mohan, Govinda Dev, and Gopinath. Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. So this deity of Gopinath is still present, and we will be very fascinated to know that the half-eaten laddu that Gopinath had from the hands of Raghunandan is still preserved till this day. So they have very nicely preserved it so that all the visitors can take darshan that this is the half-eaten laddu that the Lord had. So the next time we go to Sri Khanda, we can see this deity of Gopinath and remember this whole incident of how the Lord left his altar to eat from the hands of Raghunandan. Now, naturally, we see whenever something like this happens, the news spreads out fast. In the material world, whenever bad news is there, that spreads out fast. The faults and the criticism, that is spread out fast in the material world. But in the spiritual circles, the good qualities and the good achievements of devotees, that spread out. So when Raghunandan, this news of Gopinath eating from the hands of Raghunandan, this news spread out. It went far and wide. And in the neighboring village was called as Kanakula Krishna Nagar. In the neighboring village was a very famous and a very prominent personality whom we are all aware of. He heard this news of Gopinath eating from the hands of Raghunandan, and he decided to go and meet Raghunandan and take association of Raghunandan. Who is this personality that I am referring to? Well, he is none other than our very own, our very favorite, Shri Abhiram Thakur. Shri Abhiram Thakur ki jai. Abhiram Thakur, for those who were there in our Giriraj class, when we were describing about Giriraj, we spoke about Abhiram Thakur and how Abhiram Thakur is non-different from Sridham Sakha. So Abhiram Thakur came from a place called as Kanakula Krishna Nagar, which was a neighboring town of the province, the town of Sri Khanda. So Sri Khanda and Kanakula Krishna Nagar were adjacent. It's very interesting why this place is called as Kanakula Krishna Nagar. Well, because our acharyas say that when Abhiram Thakur's wife, when she appeared in this world, so they are all Nitya Siddha, eternal associates of the Lord. So when she appeared in this world, for 12 years, she did not have anything. For 12 years, she was completely fasting because she was thinking to herself, till the time I don't see my Lord, till the time I don't see my husband, my master, how can I have anything? So for 12 years, when the parents were feeding the wife, she would not, when they were feeding the wife of Abhiram Thakur, she wouldn't have anything, but all the food she would take and she would put it underground, under the sand. So in Hindi, we see, Hindi or even Sanskrit, the food is called as khana. We see in Hindi, we say khana. And khana kula means when that food is put under the sand. Because for 12 years, she took all the food and put it underground so that no one comes to know that she is not eating. For 12 years, she did that. And for that reason, that place became Khana Kula Krishna Nagar. But over a period of time, from Khana Kula, it became Kanakula Krishna Nagar. So this place is still prominent. And for 12 years, she did not have anything. And after she saw Abhiram Thakur, she had the first morsel. She had the first grain. So Abhiram Thakur hailed from this town of Kanakula Krishna Nagar. And apart from being the very close associate of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he was also the trusted preacher of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Apart from Abhiram Thakur, Nityananda Prabhu had a few other trusted preachers in the form of Gadadhar Das, not Gadadhar Pandit, but Gadadhar Das, who was a preacher of Nityananda Prabhu. There was another preacher by the name Udharana Thakur and another preacher by the name Gauridas Pandit. Gauridas Pandit is very prominent. He was none other than Subal Sakha in Krishna Leela. So Gauridas Pandit comes down as Subal Sakha and Abhiram Thakur comes down as Sridham Sakha. So in this context, Abhiram Thakur has a good connection with Raghunandan, something that we have not discussed in our previous classes. So Abhiram Thakur, he gets to know about Raghunandan's glories, and naturally he wants to meet Raghunandan. And now Abhiram Thakur has this track record. What is the track record? Well, the track record is Abhiram Thakur cannot stand hypocrisy. If Abhiram Thakur gives his dandavats to a deity where Krishna doesn't exist, the deity breaks to pieces. If Abhiram Thakur gives his dandavat to a stone which is not Shaligram but worshipped like a Shaligram, well, then that stone breaks into pieces, which means he can just not stand hypocrisy. His purity is so high that even the deities would break into pieces if Krishna didn't exist in the deity. So what to speak of Abhiram Thakur giving his obeisances to living entities who had false ego and lust and greed and pride and jealousy in their heart. Oh, they would die. They would burn into ashes when Abhiram Thakur offered his dandavats. So everyone was very scared of Abhiram Thakur. When Abhiram Thakur would walk one way, people would take a detour. They would take another way because they didn't want Abhiram Thakur to offer his dandavats. Abhiram Thakur in his humility would offer his dandavats, but people would be scared for their lives. Their lives were at stake because no one was as pure as Abhiram Thakur. So when he would walk, people would take a detour and they would go to some other route. So now this Abhiram Thakur was walking all the way from Kanakula Krishnanagar to Srikhanda. Why? To meet Raghunandan, to understand his glories and the whole incident that had happened. Now, dear devotees, Abhiram Thakur, apart from his glories, he also had a very famous whipping stick called as the Jai Mangal. That stick that awards auspiciousness. Jai means victory and Mangal means auspiciousness. Anyone who was whipped by the Jai Mangal would horripilate in Krishna Prem, would have love of God instantaneously. So if you remember in our previous discussions, we had also discussed about the Jai Mangal, and unfortunately, this Jai Mangal has now become aprakat. It has become unmanifest. No one knows where this Jai Mangal is. Otherwise, we all could have gone and whipped ourselves so that we all get Krishna Prem, love of Godhead. But this Jai Mangal has a nice connection with Srinivas Acharya. Now, Srinivas Acharya, as we know, is the disciple of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And Srinivas Acharya would also spend time with Abhiram Thakur. So once Abhiram Thakur, to test Srinivas Acharya, what he did was he told him that, my dear Srinivas Acharya, I am going to the neighboring town to meet some devotees. And in the meantime, I want you to cook some bhoga. Cook some bhoga and offer it to the Lord. And when we come back, we both can have the prasad. So Srinivas Acharya said, yes, Abhiram Thakur, definitely we will do it. But this was on paper. Abhiram Thakur actually wanted to test the glory of Srinivas Acharya. So on paper, Abhiram Thakur was outside the town, but in reality, he was actually very much in the town. So what Abhiram Thakur did was he sent a few Vaishnavas to the house of Srinivas Acharya just to see how Srinivas Acharya reacts, just to feel his pulse. What is his reaction when he sees the Vaishnavas? So Abhiram Thakur sends a few devotees to the house of Srinivas Acharya. So Srinivas Acharya has cooked an elaborate feast. And when he sees all the Vaishnavas, he offers all the bhoga, all the prasad. After offering it to the Lord, he offers everything to all the Vaishnavas. So he puts the hunger of the Vaishnavas above his own hunger. He prioritizes the Vaishnavas above himself. And when Abhiram Thakur got to know that Srinivas Acharya had put his hunger on stake and respected the hunger of the Vaishnavas, Abhiram Thakur became very, very, very happy. This, dear devotees, is exactly what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhu kahe Vaishnava seva nama sankirtan dui karo shigra pabe Shri Krishna charan. Prabhu kahe Vaishnava seva nama sankirtan. Prabhu is saying two things. Who is the Prabhu? Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhu kahe Vaishnava seva. Do Vaishnava seva and Nam Sankirtan. These two things are very important. What is the purpose of all the books? The books are meant to philosophically convince us to chant and dance in Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan party. That is the aim of the books. When we read the books of Prabhupada, it's not just to read the books, but the essence of the books is to chant and dance. It is to perform Nam Sankirtan. As Sripad Indra Prabhu would say, anyone who is chanting and dancing in Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan has understood the essence of Prabhupada's books. And anyone who is not chanting and dancing in Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan has simply not understood anything of Srila Prabhupada's books. They are still sleeping. Because the books are meant, it's meant to induce us, to convince us to chant and dance in the Harinam Sankirtan party. That's the aim, the essence of this Krishna consciousness movement. So we all have to come together to perform Harinam Sankirtan. Whether we are a pot washer, or whether we are a book distributor, whether we are a pujari, the pujari service becomes complete when the pujari performs Harinam Sankirtan. The book distributor becomes complete when he performs Harinam Sankirtan. The pot washing becomes complete when he performs Harinam Sankirtan. Srila Jiva Goswami says Harinam Sankirtan completes everything. All the activities, when they're coupled with Harinam Sankirtan, then that activity becomes complete. On the flip side, if we do not do other activities, but one point it's sold out if you do Harinam Sankirtan, well, then that itself gives the complete essence of all other activities. So Nam Sankirtan is the backbone of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's the summum bonum, the sum and substance of devotional life. So he says, Prabhu kahe Vaishnava seva Nam Sankirtan. But the first is Vaishnava seva, serving Vaishnavas. And like in this discussion, we see Srinivas Acharya, he put the hunger of the devotees above his own hunger. So he put Vaishnavas on top. Even in Ramayana, we see the same point, dear devotees. We have the famous vulture called as Jatayu. Now Jatayu, he saw that Ravana was kidnapping Mother Sita. And he, being a vulture, he very well knew that he cannot fight Ravana because Ravana is so powerful. He very well knew that he cannot fight Ravana. Now, please hear this very carefully. This is a very fantastic point that Valmiki in his Valmiki Ramayana states. This is a very fantastic point that we may have not come across. So Jatayu very well knew that he cannot defeat Ravana. So the question is, then why did he fight Ravana? If he knows that Ravana is more powerful, then why did he fight Ravana? Oh, well, this has a very deep understanding, a very deep meaning. For this, we have to understand the astrological connection of this pastime. We see before the sun rises, there is something called as Brahma Muhurta. So the Muhurta comprises of 48 minutes. In the Western calendars, we have days and months and years, but in traditional Vedic astrology, a Muhurta comprises of 48 minutes. So just before sunrise, that point is called as, that 48 minutes before sunrise is called as Brahma Muhurta. And the 48 minutes before Brahma Muhurta is called as Samudra Muhurta. So we have Samudra Muhurta, that is 48 minutes. Then we have Brahma Muhurta, that is 48 minutes. And then we have sunrise. So before sunrise, there is 1 hour 36 minutes that is combined together to be known as Brahma Muhurta. That 96 minutes of chunk is called as Brahma Muhurta, which is comprising of Brahma Muhurta and Samudra Muhurta. 48 minutes and 48 minutes, that is 96 minutes. So that is why we always hear that chanting in Brahma Muhurta is very auspicious. So this is the understanding of Brahma Muhurta. So now, dear devotees, when Ravana was kidnapping Mother Sita, the astrological muhurta when he was kidnapping Mother Sita was called as the Vinda Muhurta. Vinda, Vinda Muhurta. Now, the speciality of this Muhurta is that when the kidnapper kidnaps the kidnapped never comes back. Which means if Ravana would have succeeded in kidnapping Mother Sita during the Vinda Muhurta, then Mother Sita would have never come back to Sri Ram. This is the potency, the power of Vinda Muhurta. But Jatayu, he very well knew the astrological understanding. He very well knew the Vedic charts. So he did not fight Ravana to kill Ravana, but what Jatayu thought to himself was, after Vinda Muhurta was another Muhurta, which is called as Punar Vasu Muhurta. So 48 minutes of Vinda Muhurta and then 48 minutes of Punar Vasu Muhurta. So whatever happens in Vinda Muhurta, which means if Ravana would have succeeded in kidnapping Sita during the Vinda Muhurta, Sita would have never come back to Ravana, would have never come back to Sri Ram, I'm sorry. But Jatayu was just wasting the time of Ravana, because the potency of the next Muhurta, that is Punarvasu Muhurta, is even if Jatayu loses his life, the kidnapped, that is Sita, will always come back to the owner. This is the power of astrology. So Jatayu was not fighting to kill Ravana, but he was fighting just so that he can do some time waste of Ravana, so that when the astrological time changes from Vinda to Punarvasu, then Mother Sita will again eventually come back to Sri Ram. And it is for this reason, dear devotees, even though Jatayu was not successful in killing Ravana, he died, but still Maryada Purushottam Ramachandra, he did the last rites of a vulture, Jatayu. Why? Because he thought of the astrological point and he just did some time waste of Ravana, so that the astrology changes and Sita eventually can come back to her Lord Sri Ram. So even there we find, dear devotees, Jatayu puts his life at stake to protect the life of Mother Sita. So in the first example we saw, Srinivas Acharya puts his hunger at stake over the hunger of the Vaishnavas. And in the second example, Jatayu goes one notch higher. He puts his life at stake. He gives up his life to protect Mother Sita. So in the both examples, we find the Vaishnavas are put on top. So when Abhiram Thakur got to know about this, he became so happy with Srinivas Acharya that with his whipping stick, he started whipping Srinivas Acharya. 1, 2, 3, 4. He was giving him love of God, prema. And Srinivas Acharya was horripilating. His teeth was chattering. His skin was going pale. He had tears in his eyes, hair standing on end, and he was chanting, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. He was immediately induced in Gaur Prem, in Krishna Prem. And he was rolling on the ground just by the whipping stick of Abhiram Thakur. So that Abhiram Thakur, who was so powerful, was coming to the village of Sri Khanda to meet Raghunandan. And now, naturally, dear devotees, the parents of Raghunandan, that is Mukunda and his wife, they knew about the glories of Abhiram Thakur, and they were very scared for the life of their son. So what they did was they asked their son Raghunandan to go to a neighboring village, so that when Abhiram Thakur comes, they can say that, oh, Raghunandan is not here. So they chalked out this plan and sent Raghunandan to a neighboring village, so that he is not there in the town of Sri Khanda. Now when Abhiram Thakur came, he looked around and said, where is Raghunandan? Where is Raghunandan? I want to meet Raghunandan. And Mukunda, the father, he came out and said, my dear Abhiram Thakur, Raghunandan is actually not in town. He is actually gone outside. So maybe you can come a later date. So Abhiram Thakur, instead of going away, he said, oh, no problem. I will sit here and chant. He said, no problem. I will sit here. Don't worry. Now Mukunda was scratching his head because he was a pure Vaishnava. Abhiram Thakur was a pure Vaishnava. So he cannot tell Abhiram Thakur that, hey, go away. But at the same time, the life of his of his son was at stake. So Abhiram Thakur was sitting there outside the house of Mukunda and chanting his rounds and waiting when Raghunandan will come. At that time, Raghunandan, who was there in the neighboring village, he asked the host where he was staying, he asked them that, why is it that my parents have kept me here? What is the reason for that? So the host, when they heard this, they said, oh, Raghunandan, because in that village, a personality by the name Abhiram Thakur is coming and he has a whipping stick. And whenever he whips anyone, they get love of Godhead. So your parents don't want you to be whipped by him because you're so small. They don't want you to be whipped. So that is why they asked you to stay here. But when Raghunandan heard this, he started running towards Sri Khanda, crying out, Abhiram, Abhiram, Abhiram. Where is Abhiram? Because he wanted to be a recipient of the whipping stick of Abhiram Thakur. So he ran all the way, 5-year-old child ran all the way to Sri Khanda. And he was crying out, Abhiram, Abhiram, Abhiram. And finally, he came in front of Abhiram Thakur. And Abhiram Thakur came in front of Raghunandan and their eyes lit up. They were standing eye to eye, face to face, cheek to cheek. They were standing in front of each other. And everyone in the province of Sri Khanda, they were shivering because they didn't know what's going to happen. Because they thought that Abhiram Thakur is so exalted. What happens if he gives his dandavat to Raghunandan? What will happen? So they were all very afraid. And when they both of them came together, Raghunandan offered his obeisances to Abhiram Thakur. Abhiram Thakur offered his obeisance to Raghunandan. And guess what happened? Abhiram Thakur offered his obeisances to Raghunandan, and Raghunandan, well, his life was spared. Nothing happened to Raghunandan. He was perfectly intact, which only goes to show that Raghunandan, even though he was 5 years old, was so pure, had no hypocrisy in his heart. He was very pure in his dealings. So naturally, when the people of Sri Khanda, they saw this beautiful dealing of Abhiram Thakur and Raghunandan Thakur, they became so ecstatic that all of them were weeping in tears because it was two pure Vaishnavas, two associates of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, two associates of Krishna meeting each other. Because it was the first time in Gaur Leela that Abhiram Thakur was meeting Raghunandan Thakur. Abhiram Thakur is Sridham Sakha, and our dear Raghunandan is Kandharpa Manjari in the spiritual world, or he's also an expansion of the quadruple expansion that the Lord has. Aniruddha, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Vasudev. So that Pradyumna is none other than Raghunandan. So it was the first time that Kandharpa Manjari was meeting Sridham Sakha in Gaur Leela, and both of them had tears and they were embracing each other very tightly, having tears in their eyes. And Raghunandan was crying, Abhiram, Abhiram, Abhiram. And Abhiram Thakur was crying, Raghunandan, Raghunandan, where were you? They were both crying and incessantly shedding tears. And for hours together, it is said, they were dancing and dancing and dancing by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. They were both dancing, Raghunandan and Abhiram, and all the other associates of Mukunda and other parshads of Gauranga Mahaprabhu and the residents of Sri Khanda. They were all dancing. And this dancing, dear devotees, became so ecstatic that the nupur that Raghunandan was wearing, we see in Bharatnatyam, in the ankle, they wear the nupur. Those who have seen the dance, the Bharatnatyam, they see that in the ankle, they have the nupur that makes a particular type of sound. Ching, 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 ching. So Raghunandan was very small. In his leg, the parents had put a nupur. We see likewise even in Krishna Leela. Krishna would wear nupur. And Mother Yashoda would put this nupur and send Krishna and Balram away. And Krishna, who was so innocent, he would put nupur and he would walk. and then Nupur would make sound ching, 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 ching. And Krishna, even though he's Bhagavan, but he's covered by Yogamaya, Krishna would think to himself, where is the sound coming from? And he would look to Balram and ask Balram, Thou means elder brother, Thou, where is the sound coming from? And they both would stop and look around where the sound is coming from. And they wouldn't come to know. And they would again walk, and again the sound would be ching, 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 and again they would stop. And Krishna and Balram would spend their day just trying to figure out where the sound is coming from, when Krishna was very small. So similarly, Raghunandan was very small, was wearing this nupur and was dancing. And the dancing became so ecstatic that this nupur just fell. From his feet, it just fell to a far off distant place. It didn't fall off 1 feet or 2 feet or 3 feet, but it fell, dear devotees, to a neighboring village. It fell to a neighboring town just by his dancing. And the place where this nupur fell, dear devotees, a whole kund was formed, a whole pit was formed, which even now is called as the Nupur Kund, because this kund was formed by the nupur of Raghunandan Thakur. His loving sentiments formed the Nupur Kund. So in this way, dear devotees, Raghunandan has a very strong connection with Abhiram Thakur, and he's also this glorious son of a glorious father, Mukunda. And all of them hailed from the town of Sri Khanda. So in this way, we find Sri Khanda is a very power-packed, potent place where so many pastimes took place. And we can, in our hearts, we can make a resolution that may the day arise in our lives quickly when we can leave everything to the side and we can go to Navadvip Dham, and we can also go to Sri Khanda, which is about 30-40 kilometers from Navadvip Dham, and see all the pastime places that occurred. Having said this, I would very humbly want to thank everyone for very kindly being on the call. If there were any mistakes, any flaws, please kindly feel free to correct me. And if there were anything nice that came up in this discussion, the credit goes to our predecessor acharyas. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Khanda Dham ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.